Три формы глагола shout. Shout переводится как кричать, и данный глагол правильный. Его форма, соответственно, shout, shouted, shouted, shout, shouted, shouted. It's a regular verb. Это правильный глагол. Давайте с вами посмотрим примеры. Итак, don't shout at her. Не надо кричать на нее. Don't shout at her. Don't shout at her. Она не заслуживает это. She doesn't deserve it. Don't shout at her. She doesn't deserve it. Далее. Он закричал вдруг. He shouted suddenly. He shouted suddenly. One more example. Она закричала, чтобы позвать на помощь. She shouted for help. She shouted for help. She shouted for help. Далее. Он часто кричал на нее. He often shouted at her. He often shouted at her. Без всякой тому причины. For no reason. Но она не кричала на него как бы взамен. But she didn't. But she didn't shout at him. But she didn't shout at him. Она мирилась с этим. She put up. Put up — это фраза глагол мириться. She put up with it. She put up with it. И, конечно, это очень грустно. Of course, it's very sad. Of course, it's very sad. So he often shouted at her for no reason, but she didn't shout at him. She put up with it. Of course, it's very sad. Давайте еще раз все повторим. So, shout. It's a regular verb. Shouted, shouted. Examples. Don't shout at her. She doesn't deserve it. He shouted suddenly. She shouted for help. He often shouted at her for no reason, but she didn't shout at him. She put up with it. Of course, it's very sad.